turn myself up. And Newt, come up and say hi. Say hello, everyone, for 2023. Newt's jumping up. Come on. Everyone wants to say hi to you. Come on. They don't care about me. They can't. No, you just know. You're gonna walk away. You're gonna walk away like a diva, or you're gonna eat something that's on the floor. No, come here. I know you don't like to be picked up, but there are people here. Look, say hello. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's having a wonderful 2023 to start your year, right, Newt? Yeah, you're just like, I'm done. I hate everything. I'm just gonna take this until you let go. Okay. You gonna stay on my lap, or you gonna run away? You gonna run away? Or you gonna stay here? Oh, he's gonna stay here with mommy. Hello, everybody. How goes everyone? Excuse me. Oh, are you gonna run away, or are you gonna stay? Come on, stay. Okay, stay. Cyberquaker series. Willa Bevy, Mars Hale, Lily, Lewis Darden, Miranda Keitel, Junie, Abigail, Ghost, Danya Lestrange, Catherine, good to see you. Rachel, Lewis, I said hi to you, Lewis. Get out of here. Get out of here. Adrenaline, Joel, Homebody, Osiris Axe, Moonflower Gal, Pamela Jones, everybody. I hope Miss Wicked Wolf, good to see you. I hope everyone is doing really well. Everyone, I'm sure I missed a bunch of people, obviously, but Leon, Luna, it's good to see all of you. I hope you're all doing really well. I hope your 2023 is doing amazing. Oh, that's awesome, Josh. You got a PlayStation 5 for Christmas? That's amazing. And Mr. Wicked Wolf, you got a Paramount Plus for Christmas. Yes, that means now you can watch more Star Trek. That's all that really the Paramount Plus subscription is, just a Star Trek subscription, really. Is there anything else on there that you want to watch? The Good Fight, maybe? Is that still a thing? Is The Good Fight still a thing? I don't even know if that's still a thing. But you could watch it if you so choose. Aerodoc, good to see you. You'll never guess what I was watching this before this, Clone Wars, making sure I haven't forgot. Yeah, Aerodoc, I'm surprised you watch Star Wars stuff. By the way, Aerodoc, we're gonna talk tomorrow. No, Saturday. Saturday's the plan to chat. But I'm excited to talk to you about Bad Batch. I don't know if you've seen season 2 yet, the beginning 2 episodes, but I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. But we'll talk Saturday about that, Eric. But it's good to see you. I got personal care stuff. Oh, that's awesome. I sadly, so forewarning, I will probably next week, or the week after, depending, show you all my Christmas haul, because unfortunately I can't show you yet because it is still traveling to me, because what happened was I got a few things for Christmas from family, but I was in Buffalo at the time, which that's a whole other story. But unfortunately, because I was traveling, even beyond the getting caught in a blizzard part of that story, a lot of my stuff was too big to take back in my bag, so I shipped it to myself. And sadly, it has not come yet. So I don't have any of my Christmas gifts here yet. But I got a few cool things, but I'll save it because there's some cool stuff that I kind of want to show off. But some stuff that I did get that I was very excited about was I found my old Animorph books, and I found my old Bionicles. In fact, maybe I'll go and grab them before the stream's over. Newt's on my lap right now, but I'm sure he'll leave by the end of the stream. But remind me by the end of the stream. I'm going to go get my old Bionicles that I shipped to myself and I have in my the other room now that I'm so pumped to share. So we'll go through some Bionicle stuff. But anyways, before I get too far in the stream, let me just pop up, make sure I have 2 chat windows up so I can keep up with anything like Super Chats, because I've already seen some Super Chats pop up. But hello, everybody. So in case you don't know what this is my weekly chat stream. I sort of didn't do it at the end of the last 2 weeks of last year because I was taking a break and also caught in a blizzard. But yeah, this is a chat stream where for about an hour every week, we just sit, we hang out, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. So super chats as Leon. Leon! That's an incredibly generous super chat. Thank you so much, Leon. I appreciate you. But yeah, I give hearts to super chats. I answer super chat questions as best I can, but then I also try to answer all questions as best I can by keeping an eye on the chat. I just ask, I try to balance super chats with people just hanging out in the chat who can't give super chats and things like that. But if you do have a question for me that you want me to see and you're not doing a super chat, just at me in the chat, because I can't guarantee I'll see it, but I'll be more likely to see it if you have like something directed at me, if you at me, because I'll be able to look for it. So yeah, just get me an at, and I'll try and answer the question as best as possible. But both sounds like glorious. Yeah, both gifts sound glorious. I know, I was so excited. See, here's the thing with my Bionicles and my Animorph stuff, which again, I'll go see once Newt's off my lap. I actually had thought my mom had gotten rid of them. because part of the reason I wanted to see family when I went back to Buffalo, but another reason was my mom wanted me to clear out the last vestiges of my stuff that I had at her house, which I did. And the two things that I wanted desperately were my Animorph books and my Bionicles. And I was worried that she had gotten rid of them. She actually said she had gotten rid of my Bionicles, but I actually found them in a box. And so was super excited that I was able to get them. So I thought that they were gone for good. But they were still saved. So I was very excited about that. But we'll go and say that. Oh, Homebody, I see someone said sorry for your loss, Homebody. I hope everything's, well, it doesn't sound like it's great, but my grandmother, who was my second and far better mother to me, oh, Homebody, I'm sending you love, especially, I know how hard it is to not make the funeral. To let you know, I think I talked about this, but about, must have been 2 years ago at this point, towards the middle of, I don't want to say middle's the wrong word, but like during the COVID pandemic, my grandmother passed away from COVID, which was absolutely horrible and really rough. And I also wasn't able to attend the funeral because of COVID. I had to watch like a live stream of it, which was very weird to see family members at a funeral on a live stream. So I know how much it sucks, Homebody. So I'm sending you love. And how much that hurts, especially when a grandparent is like a direct parent as well. But all of us have relationships to our grandparents in complicated but loving often ways, and I'm very sorry to you. Well, sending you love, my friend. Am I a little quiet? I can turn up here. Let me know if I can turn this up a little bit. But yeah, sending you love, Homebody, for that. I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to not be able to attend a funeral. So, sending you love, my friend, and everyone send some love Homebody's way. I do want to get to some super chats though. Sorry to shift from a tough topic. I just Seki Spurs. I donated my Harry Potter books in a fit of rage. I regret nothing. Good. I won't get into. So I'm gonna forewarn you all right now. I'll talk about. I'll get to super chats in a second. I'm gonna tell you all right now. I have a video coming out tomorrow. That is a video that I made before all the stuff at the end of the last year. That was just talking about some mental health changes I'm going to be making to the content that I'm going to be making on this channel, just in terms of what I'm going to be talking about, how often I get it out. That'll video be coming out tomorrow. But I'm also currently working on a video about J.K. Rowling that I'm titling my last video on J.K. Rowling ever. And you'll see why it'll be my last one, because it's not really going to be about her. It'll be about systemic issues. Shocker of shocks. So I'm working on that video. So just someone talking about Harry Potter stuff just made me think about that. So it's going to go into all the nonsense that happened towards the end of last year, how that nonsense that happened at the end of last year was indeed nonsense, and how there's much larger issues to be discussing than just J.K. Rowling or just boycotting the Harry Potter series, and why the conversation keeps coming back to J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, and why people want it to be just about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. So that'll be a longer video. I'm working on it right now. It's stressing me out a little bit because I just kind of want to be done with it. I might hand it off to a friend to edit so I don't have to deal with it as much anymore. But that's my current focus. And then from there on out, my goal for the rest of the year is to focus on videos that cause me joy. Or at the very least are about larger issues than just individual people. So yeah, that is that's my goal for 2023 as a creator. And then I'll also have some other announcements coming too. But anyways, let me get to some of the super chats because I'm already behind on those. And thank you everybody. Yeah, J.K. Rowling Furious. It's just you make more videos. Yeah. Like I said, I'm done making videos about J.K. Rowling. I'm gonna make one more to just be done, and you'll see why, and that'll be it. Oh, that's wonderful, Josh. I'm glad. Yeah, Aronok and I have a video. I'm excited because Aronok and I are going to talk about it Saturday. Aronok and I have a video coming that'll be probably around like March-ish. Y'all should be pumped for, because I wrote up like a significant portion of it, but the stuff that Aronok has come up with, like conceptually, and has articulated to me, is so cool. Like, this video is going to be a lot of fun. Sorry to pitch it. I need to get to the super chats here. But yeah, you all should be excited about it because there's some fun stuff. Oh no, there was a super chat about SG1, but I missed it. Where did it go? There was someone super chatted about Stargate SG1. Please repost it because I meant to get to it, but it's been so long that it kind of got out from where I can rewind to. Geek Filter, happy 2023. We're wearing the same shirt right now. Oh, that's super cool. Oh, that's fun. We're Trekkie buddies. For anyone who can't see, I'm wearing the Star Trek Lower Decks TV shirt from season 2, with Ransom becoming a god from Strange Energies. It was a fun time. It's funny. That's the second time that like I've been wearing the same Star Trek shirt as somebody lately. I did an interview. It's actually just released today, I think. A friend of my channel, Dan Gunther, does a podcast called Positively Trek about Star Trek, where he interviews Star Trek novel authors, because I love Star Trek novel authors. And we talked to I believe it was not Date. Who wrote Harm's Way? There was a novel called Star Trek Harm's Way, and I always get Dayton Ward and the other Star Trek author confused because they have very similar names. David Mack. I always get Dayton Ward and David Mack confused because they're both wonderful people that I've met. But I interviewed David Mack with Dan Gunther, and David Mack and I were wearing the same Star Trek shirt, which was very fun for the podcast. It was a good time. But yeah, that's just fun. Leon, heart to you. You said, I've been wanting to ask you about your opinion about artificial intelligence and arts. What's your take on it? So I got in trouble for this over break because I tweeted about some thoughts with AI, but I just want to be very, very clear because there was some Twitter nonsense about it that I'll explain a little bit. But I actually had a lot of conversations with my brother about it with AI art. First and foremost, when it comes to AI art, I am very much on the side that we need to protect artists working today who need to make a living and are doing work creating art from their heart, and also trying to make a living doing work making from art. So a lot of like laws and protections around AI art, I think, should center around that. I think there is a complicated question about whether or not AI art is because this gets into a whole conversation about philosophy, whether AI art is stealing or copyright infringement, because just again, it's a complicated issue, because the idea with AI art is that it's like looking at the internet and like finding a bunch of different artistic influences and then like sort of grabbing from them and then making its own art, but it's stealing from a bunch of different artists. But in a way, you could argue that like that's what humans do. But the difference is that human beings come into things with intent and also are like generating their own artistic intent and creativity into a work that are sort of pulling from their life experiences and things like that. Whereas AI, quote unquote AI, and Aronach is here who knows about this so much more than I do, because Aronach actually like studies this crap and does this stuff with AI. So it's not quote unquote intelligences, it's sort of algorithms doing it. Again, I'll hand it to Aronach who could talk more about it. But like there's no creativity, there's no like impetus there. It's just sort of recognizing patterns as opposed to having an intent. And so my thoughts about AIR are really, I think we should be protecting people today who are working today, who are able to, who are trying to make a living. And that's sort of what AI art is being used for today, is by companies who just want to sort of they just want to not be able to pay artists for work. They said, well, we can automate art and we can make like AI book covers. Like I believe the Christopher Paolini's latest book is using an AI generated book cover, which is really terrible because the people in charge didn't want to pay an author to make the book cover, so they used AI art. And that's just companies trying to cater to the lowest common denominator in order to just get by with what they like, the paying the least to get art out there. And it kind of just goes to like the same idea as like algorithm generated movies. You know, there hasn't been like a movie made by an algorithm yet, but there are movies that are sort of like being made by like, oh, we'll just sort of toss into a blender The Rock or Ryan Gosling and we'll make a Netflix movie without really any artistic intent behind it. And I think that's kind of what capitalism does, is it just tries to like auto-generate creativity and artistic passion. And AI art today is literally just that. It's just generating without intent or creativity. So yeah, I think that's generally my consensus on it. One of the reasons that I got in trouble over break was I articulated kind of like a sci-fi premise that I thought was kind of interesting. Was like, well, you know, this idea of today, one of the things that we're talking about is AI cannot copyright art because AI isn't generating art itself. Which I think is correct. Like AI should not be able to you should not be able to copyright AI art for numerous reasons. Again, protecting workers working today and artists working today. But I was just sort of thinking about that and being like, well, you have that law in the books, and like 100 years from now, We have, you know, artificial intelligences that we still don't really see as sentient, but might be getting sentient and might actually generate their own art. But then we have to go to court to whether or not they actually did or not, and then we sort of might be denying AI artists rights. And people rightfully pointed out, it's like, oh, that sounds like you're trying to give empathy to AI against people working today, which is not what my intention was, but it was more just sci-fi speculation. That's like stuff that you see speculated in everything from, I don't know, the Animatrix to anything about artificial intelligences. But I understand that, like, the conversation is heated, and, like, we need to be talking about, like, people who are being harmed today about AI art. So, it was just one of those complicated things. So, anyways, I just ranged for a bunch there, but I'm just checking up on the chat here. Let's see. AI generated art seems to be a useful tool. That is something that I do. I don't mind artificial intelligence, like, being used to, like, generate cool ideas. Like, for example, I actually used AI art when I was writing my short story. I just, like, typed in, like, some cool ideas for, like, eyeballs and trees and things, if you saw the horror story that I wrote. Just to, like, sort of give myself, like, cool ideas for, like, visuals and things like that to describe. But, like, I didn't use it in the finished work, but I just used it for, like, inspiration and things like that. But then there's discussion about whether or not that makes, like, a society of editors instead of generators of art, which is an interesting, another interesting argument. So, yeah, I think there's the same thing as Googling stuff. Exactly, Aronok. So, I mean, like, I think there's a lot of interesting conversations about AI, but today I think the biggest concern is, like, capitalism is using AI to cater to the lowest common denominator and not pay workers, and it is making workers unable to do their art and their work, even for income. Which, you know, sometimes there are artists who just do work for income, and that's totally fine and acceptable, and that doesn't mean there's not passion behind it, but there's also sometimes people just do it for the paycheck, and that's also cool. Heaven knows I'm a writer who's written for, you know, just a paycheck before and had no passion behind what I was writing. But it's also, we should be helping people living today to do that. Anywho, let me get to the next super chat. Because, yeah, I could do a whole, there's like a 3-hour long discussion you could have on AI art. But that's sort of the cliff notes, I guess, on my opinion on it. My main concern is AI rising up against humanity. See, I don't really have that concern. I don't know, this is that's a whole other discussion I could get into. I had this philosophical debate with my brother over break too, about, like, that's a whole discussion. I will save it because I actually have some stuff that I'm working on that will actually get into that a little bit, so I'll save it for that. But yeah, I don't really see that as a concern. I think the real concern that you'd have with, like, AI ever, like, trying to kill humans would be if we get to the line of sentient, like, we have AIs as sentients, they become sentient, but we still don't see them as sentient, and so we create an oppressed class of people, and then they eventually fight back for their rights to be seen as full people and persons. And that's just kind of what happens in a lot of people who are oppressed. That's a thing that humans do. When humans oppress others, eventually there will be generally people who rise up against their oppressors. And so I don't see that being a dynamic exclusive to AIs, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think there's, like, going to be a mass AI genocide of humanity, generally. There might be AIs fighting for their own rights at some point, possibly, maybe. But then again, maybe not. Maybe it'll be more like Data, and there'll be arguments about his sentience. Or even Star Trek Picard kind of touched upon it too, even though that was kind of wonky. It's a long conversation, so yeah, I think there's a long level to get to that point. So it is a very Western fear, Aronok. I can definitely see that. I honestly see it would be more like children. Like, AI would be like someone you're teaching and want to eventually grow past you, right? This is a whole. I've so focused on AI too much already. But I would always see, like, AI being more like people who we, like, kids, like people who we give birth to and sometimes see as an extension of ourselves, like some parents do, which is a problem. And then some people will want them to expand beyond us, to grow beyond us. I think that's a much more loving way to think about it. Anywho, Super Desi, heart to you. Shared this on Discord, but I'll chat it up here. Over the Christmas New Year, I found a vintage fast Star Trek RPG with the out of plane. Oh, that's so cool. Oh my god. Like, what do you mean, like a game or like just like a Star Trek Adventures like tabletop RPG? Because that's really cool, Super Desi. Michaela Eager, heart to you. You said thoughts on Willow. It's just so fun and irreverent. Yeah, I like Willow. I think Willow's fun. Like, I don't think it's anything, like, I've been watching every episode of Willow. I don't think it's amazing as a show, but I like Warwick Davis. I like most of the people on the show. I think it's generally pretty fun. Like I said, it's fine. And I like that it's LGBTQ inclusive, though the first episode, might have been the second episode, may have done a bury your gays storyline, but there's enough other queer people in it that I'm less upset about it than I normally would be, but it's still not great. But the queer relationships are wonderful. The characters are actually well articulated. I think it's a lot of fun, but it doesn't knock my socks off, but that's fine. I don't think everything needs to be amazing. Like, it's okay for art to be good. But then you'll see, and gets in a whole other discussion, but then you'll see, like, different groups that are using Willow as like, oh, it's crap, they ruined my childhood, because the people like to make that hate monger generating mill machine that's out there. Their latest thing is the Witcher spin-off series or whatever, which I also watched, and it was also fine. It wasn't great. It was kind of meh. But, like, people are like, they ruined The Witcher. It's because they added diversity and wokeness. Which is always how they peddle stuff. That people like to use mediocre art to argue that it's like ruining our childhood and ruining art or whatever with diversity and wokeness. It's very frustrating. But Willow on its own, I think, is a very fun series. I really enjoy it. Yeah, it's like I said, it's nothing knock my socks off, but it's great. I think it's fun. Heart to you, Catherine Beth. It's good to see you. Let's see. Hooray for Miranda. Yeah, please talk about a video. That's totally fine. Catherine says, hooray for videos that bring Jessie. I adored that dorky video about your Star Trek books. Yeah, I want to do more videos like that. If you hadn't seen on my secondary channel, I'm doing a video about what was I saying? I did a video on my secondary channel about, like, the Star Trek Kill I Die On, and it was just a fun video where I got to, like, be weird and out there. I want to try and do more videos like that over there. It's not going to be everything. I'm still going to do reviews and things like that, but I want to do, like, more, like just quick videos that are, like, a little bit more fun. I kind of got inspired by, being honest, Little Joel, or Big Joel if you know him. I really like his work, and he has a secondary channel called Little Joel where he's been doing, like, these small bite-sized videos, every day or so, or every other day. And it's, I don't know, I kind of enjoy that. I think it's cool, and I kind of got inspired to do videos like that. So, it's probably gonna take me a little bit because I'm working on this J.K. Rowling video, and then once I finish that one, because I want to get that one out as fast as possible, probably in 2 weeks. But then after that, I'm slowing down my workload. So I'll be able to add in those types of things and have a little bit more fun. So you'll start seeing that probably towards February. Let's see. Catching up on Super Chats here. Writing an essay on Lilo and Stitch. Thoughts on it? I actually haven't seen, to be honest with you, I haven't seen Lilo and Stitch in forever. I saw it when it came out and liked it. Watched some of the, I think there's an animated TV show that I also watched a little bit of. But I could not really articulate to you any major thoughts on Lilo and Stitch, to be very frank. Unfortunately, just because it's been too dang long. Oh, Beardly, interesting. Beardly, you keep being incredibly generous and way too giving with your super chats. I hope you're taking care of yourself, because I do appreciate that, but like, that is incredibly generous. So please make sure you're taking care of yourself, and I really appreciate it, my friend. Heart to you. You said, Merry Christmas, Jessie, sending good vibes and can't wait for your coming vids. Also, I had a fun thought about what if simulation theory is real? Maybe we are an AI generated, all inspirations learning fed into a data, so all our art is actually output to some request. Possibly. I mean, I whenever that idea of like the simulation, like we all live in a simulation, it comes up, I'm always just sort of like, there's no way of knowing, so it doesn't really matter. Like, it's one of those, like, it's an interesting thought experiment idea, and and you could use that idea for like cool stuff like the Matrix did, and use it like as a metaphor for different things like capitalism, whatever you want to use it for. But as a concept, it's one of those like, gotta keep. I live in this reality, so I'm just gonna keep going with what I know. And it's kind of like the same argument with like determinism, and the idea of like, do we have free will or not? It's an interesting thought experiment and like interesting things to think about. Like, do we have free will, or is there a God, or is there just, or are we just reactions to previous stimuli? Like everything has an equal and opposite reaction, so everything is predictable. Sort of gets into like quantum theory and things like that. Which is all interesting. But then it's one of those like, well, it's an interesting thought experiment and maybe something cool to study as like a scientific thought, but it's like as a person acting today, it's like I kind of just have to exist as like I do have free will. Maybe I don't, but I have to continue on as if I do. So yeah, it's just an interesting thought experiment, but it's one of those like, I don't know how much like I think about it too much on a day-to-day level outside of like a thought experiment. Oh, see, I have some other super chats coming, but someone asked, Jessie, are you going to do a video on Andrew Tate? No, not directly. One video, it depends on if I have time, and I don't know how quick I'm going to get at because I have other things I'm going to be working on, but a video that I do want to do that I've been wanting to do for a while, but actually it seems like more relevant now because of the discourse that's fallen out of it, Andrew Tate stuff. Speaking of Little Joel, but like there's been this discourse of like the left, quote unquote, is not articulating to, is not inspiring to many young men because it sort of ostracizes young men, making them feel like, oh, you have to like feminize yourself to be a man or whatever. And that's sort of like there's so many things that I could say about that, and I would send it to Little Joel for like the direct like rebuttals to like the people's thoughts on that, like Vosh's thoughts on that, but. One thing that I do think that we should be talking about more, and I think FD Signifier has talked about this a lot when he's talked about like the manosphere and stuff like that, but talking about how a lot of what we're fighting against, and a lot of what I try to talk about is allowing people abilities to express themselves out of ways that are predetermined for them, like how men are always told to be aggressive, not talk about their emotions, not be open about themselves, but also be able to express themselves in ways that are healthy towards others. And one of the things that I kind of want to do a video about and thinking about more is rage, and my thoughts on my own rage that I had as a kid. Because I especially actually thought about this when I was back home with my mom, when I was like in my old room and stuff, because I could see where I did it, was I had a lot of rage when I was a kid. Like a lot of rage. I once punched through a wall. My temper was really bad. And I'm going to tell you this story and pre-warn you that the cat was totally fine. But in one moment that I deeply regret, I threw one of my mom's cats, when I was younger, in anger. Again, moment I deeply regret, the cat was absolutely fine, totally horrible thing that I did as a kid, but it goes to show like a lot of the anger that I had, went on to be harmful to myself and to others, and could have escalated and grown even more and more and more. And I think that that's often a thing that many young men feel, or people even perceive to be young men. Because people perceived to be young men, are told that they're men or are men, are often told that they can't express themselves through anything other than rage. And one of the things that helped me was, number one, being able to articulate that I was trans and be able to express that I was trans and be able to express myself. But I also feel like that's, a feeling that a lot of people, but young men especially, or people perceived as men, aren't able to feel like they can express themselves. And I think what we need to talk about is how we're not trying to vilify masculinity, because that's become the talking point quite often, right? Whenever we talk about something like toxic masculinity or something like that, the talking point becomes like, well, you just hate masculinity. Why do you hate masculinity? It's like, no. We're trying to talk about like reframing masculinity, but that gets lost in the discourse, especially because I feel like one of the things that we fail to do is talk more. We go after the things that are problematic with the way that people are told to express themselves as men today. But we don't often offer a chance to reframe that in a way that still allows men to feel like they are men, but in a healthy way that helps them articulate their feelings in a compassionate way. And I think and I don't want to say that there aren't people doing that. There are numerous people doing that. One of the people that is best at that is friend of the channel, Fantastic Mr. Fox. If any of you have not watched Fantastic Mr. Fox's channel, he is absolutely amazing. And he's done so many great videos about this sort of stuff. And I would highly recommend checking out his work. So there are people that are talking about that, and anyone who goes actually understands what feminism is about and what a lot of what we're talking about is about, that's what you find. But the way that feminism is often sold by fear mongers and hate mongers, about the left is saying that they hate masculinity and men and they're so anti-men and they hate white men and it's no, what we really, and some people fall into that framing because we all fall into that wanting to be antagonists to each other framing of us versus them. I fall into it a bunch too, the whole rolling versus trans people or whatever. It's always antagonism as opposed to saying no, we want to be compassionate to everybody, and figuring out how ways to recognize who's causing harm and who has the privilege to have platform and perpetuates harm against others, but also trying to make sure that we find a world and create a world that allows people to express themselves in their own unique way that is healthy for everybody, including the people who sometimes cause harm in their perpetuation of their platform. So it's an interesting. Was there a transphobe in the chat? I'm sure there was. But yeah, no, it's a whole conversation about stuff. But yeah, I would highly recommend everybody go check out Fantastic Mr. Fox's channel. I don't know if Finn's here. Sometimes Finn's in the chat and hanging out with us. But if you're here, Finn, hawk your wares. But Finn's work is amazing. You should definitely check him out. Let's see. Jar Jar Ed, heart to you. You said, remember Google, Skynet becomes self-aware at 2014 Eastern time on August 29th. Don't panic, stock of Funko Pops. Gonna be that skeleton of Sigourney Weaver in Terminator 2. Right? That's Terminator 2 where she's the skeleton hanging onto the fence watching John Connor. I want to be that. That's the person I want to be. Excuse me. A heart to you, Jar Jar Ed. Oppressed artificial intelligence rising up against it. Did you watch the anime? I have watched the Animatrix, and yeah, that's very much what that movie is about. It's an anthology movie, but a lot of it is about that as a concept. It's a great movie. You should totally check it off. Linda, yeah, what did I say? I said Sigourney Weaver, didn't I? I meant Linda Hamilton. Excuse me. Yeah, no, Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor. For some reason, I had Sigourney Weaver in my brain, probably because of James Cameron / Alien / Avatar. Because I did see Avatar: The Way of Water, which is fine. It's definitely got the white savior stuff going on, and I'm like I said, this is not me. This is not me to get the person to be offended by it. But I'll just say this: I don't hate The Way of the Water. It was a fine movie, gorgeous looking, but it was just fine. The message was yeah, don't hurt the environment, and human beings are suck when it comes to teaching the environment. But there's a few things that I have problems with, the Avatar: The Way of Water, in that it doesn't really allow us to self-analyze really well. It sort of frames ability to, even beyond the white savior bits of the movie. Sorry, I'm getting in a whole discussion of The Way of Water, but even beyond the white savior bits of the movie, even if we discard that, though I will say Jake Sully, this is the thing I was going to say, Jake Sully having dreads in the movie just made me uncomfortable. Not my place to get offended by that, and I'm sure someone else could articulate their feelings on it much better than I can. But for me, I was just I'm not, it's not for me to say, but I'm not sure that's okay. It's sort of my feelings on that. I was not sure how, yeah, I was but the problem that I have with Avatar: The Way of Water really is conceptually, besides it not really having much of a nuanced argument other than protect the environment, which yes, cool, good message. There's no real nuance in that. And also the fact that it dealt with some cool sci-fi concepts that didn't really explore the whole stuff of the I forget his name, but the villain from the first movie being downloaded into Navi's body, but being that character, but viewing himself as someone separate from that character. So it's like, it's not a continuance. Like, there's this cool idea of like continuance of identity. How does he identify as himself and his own identity now that he's in a Na'vi body, who's the body of the people that he's like supposedly supposed to view as the enemy? There's no real analysis of any of that. It's very superficial, and like that's such a cool concept that they could have played with. And it's very much like, yeah, no, he's just the villain, and he still sees himself as a Marine or whatever. Like, what I would have done with that is like, sorry, this is my whole thing, because I love that. I always love the concepts of like continuance of identity and being in different bodies and stuff. It would have been like, oh, he's still like, he like is having himself like relate more to the Na'vi, but he like doubles down on his identity as a Marine to like hold on to his like core conception of his identity, which like they have elements of in the movie, but they don't really explore with any depth. And there's like the fatherhood stuff a little bit, which is kind of interesting, but not really explored with much depth. But anyways, my other big problem with Avatar: The Way of Water is it like still allows us to like view, like care for the environment as like an alien concept. And yes, there's the white savior bit of like, oh, the white guy going into the indigenous coded culture. That's still a problem and still there. But even more core to the problem in the message of the movie is it's like, it's saying like care for the environment is a non-human thing. That humans are always going to like not care for the environment. And so we can like escape to worlds like Pandora, both in our entertainment and within the text of the work, but we're not really able to like find a way as human beings to find that balance. And that was even something like, even though it was in that white savior, like taking on the body of indigenous people story that's present in the first movie, it's worse there, but at least the movie, that one at least allowed you to be a little bit more like aware, because you have Jake Sully being a human who goes through that journey. Whereas here it's sort of like very much coded as like two separate civilizations. And I would have much rather like a more nuanced take on that. It's an interesting sort of thought. Carson Phelps, yes, I am actually, thank you for asking. This is a whole conversation. I need to catch up with some super chats here, but I am non-binary, but I also identify like towards like woman on the spectrum. Like if you, again, it's like I identify as a demi-woman non-binary person. So generally I feel affinity towards being like being seen as a woman. I use she, they pronouns, but I also sort of very much identify non-binary as well. Like I'm not exactly, you know, what one would typically define as a woman. It's a complicated conversation I could go into a whole discussion on, but it's that's just long and short of it. You can use she, they pronouns for me. I'm fine with being being discussed as a non-binary person or as a woman, and I sort of am in that space. But yeah, either is fine. Okay, Geek Filter, hard to use, said, I just asked an AI to write you a super chat. Hey, Jesse, just wanted to say thank you for all the amazing content you create. Keep the good work, and we can't wait to see what you have in store for us in the future. Oh, thank you, Geek Filter, and the AI. The AI is wonderful and sweet. Don't murder me. No, as we were joking about before. Chloe, yeah, what was your first thought about Stargate SG-1? I do want to do a video at some point. I don't know if it'll be this year or not, but I do want to do a video on Stargate Atlantis at some point. I've been rewatching Stargate Atlantis lately, and God, I love that show. I like SG-1. SG-1 is fun, but Atlantis was my sweet spot. Like, especially when Star Trek went off the air. When Enterprise got canceled and it was like that null space of like no Star Trek for a while in my youth. Stargate generally and Atlantis specifically was like the thing that filled that gap for me. It's like a big open franchise that I could have fun about. Like Atlantis, love it so much. Let's see. Someone asked in the chat who says, Paul Atreides. Hey, gotta love the Dune name. Making sure I don't miss super chats here. But the Trek and Hoovian, I see your super chat. I'll get to yours next. But you said thoughts on James Gunn taking over DC. I'm very excited. I am very, Aerodoc, if you want to do after our next video, our Star Wars one, and you want to do an Atlantis video, I'm hella here for that. It's just like a detox one to like something smaller but a lot more fun to do together. I would be down for that, Aeronaut. We can talk about it Saturday. But we got to get the Star Wars one done first. But hell yeah, I'd be doing that. But yeah, no, James Gunn taking over DC. I'm very excited about it. I've made no bones about the fact that I love James Gunn as a filmmaker. You know, he's not my favorite filmmaker ever, but in terms of like big pop culture films, I think he's one of the he's one of the few filmmakers who is able to take like big pop culture franchises and still make his voice heard within them. And I think that is really cool to see him take over DC, because I know he'll love the DC stuff. He'll be able to articulate, like, have an artist vision behind it that I resonate with more than, like, Zack Snyder, because say it about Zack Snyder, but he at least made it his vision. I will always give him that. Even if I didn't like the vision, I will appreciate that it was his. Which is something you can't really say. So I resonate with James Gunn's messages a lot more. I appreciate him as a filmmaker. I think he can guide things really well. And I think that he will enable other filmmakers to have their own unique voice even within the bigger DC universe in a way that I feel like Marvel isn't still doing as well. That I would really, really like to see him do. My only real concern, and there's like been a lot of talk from, especially from like the cancel James Gunn crowd, because they've always wanted to get him ever since they got him fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There's been people being like angry at him for like the firing of like Wonder Woman may not be in it, or they're sticking with different actors but not Superman, Henry Cavill or whatever. It's like, dude's stepping into a mess of a situation and he's trying to figure out where to go from here. So I'm willing to give him like the time to figure it out, and he's gonna have to wipe some boards clean and keep what others and keep what works. And I'm willing to see what he's willing to do. I'm excited for it. My real only concern with James Gunn as right now is number one, he's gonna have to fight the shittiness that is David Zaslav at Warner Brothers. So there's that fight he has to deal with. And then number two, while James Gunn has certainly gotten much better about this, like you look at Peacemaker and he is much more diverse and inclusive than he was in something like Guardians of the Galaxy or even before in his work in like Super and stuff. I do hope that he recognizes to not just hire other like cis white dudes to make DC movies. Like, don't get me wrong, I would love more cis white dudes to make movies as well. I'm excited to see what other cis white dudes make, like Matt Reeves' Batman movies. Excited for them. Curious to see what he's gonna do there. Even though I had issues with the neoliberalism and the like not all cops message of the Batman, even though I liked that movie. But I just hope that James Gunn is welcoming in more diverse voices into the behind the scenes of both the director's chair and other parts of the DC universe in the filmmaking. So that's my literal only concern with James Gunn, and he has shown that he is willing to do better about that and been open to improving on that, and has shown a trajectory to being much more diverse in his hiring, in his casting, and all of those things. So I trust him. I just want to keep pushing him to go further. Yeah, I know. I'm excited for James Gunn. I think that's really my long and short of my thoughts on James Gunn. But the Trek and Hoovy, and sorry, I missed your super chat here. You said, I binge watched Years and Years the other day, and it was great and gives me hype for the RTD era. If it's going to be anything like that, then although it did have the bury your gaze trope. Yeah, no, if you haven't seen Years and Years, great show by Russell T Davies, who is now taking back over Doctor Who. Very political show. Like, the whole concept is like, I think it's been a minute. I saw it when it came out, but it was like the idea was like showing the future of a like very like the post like a Trump presidency further into the future, and like the further slip to fascism and the right. And a lot of his stuff was it predicted a lot of cool stuff in it in dark ways. But it also shows how political Russell T Davies has always been, even going back to his run on Doctor Who. Like literally, he had farting aliens in Downing Street. Like, that was, like, the farting alien's a bit camp, right? But it was very much politically targeted. And that was just throughout his work. He had a lot of lesbians and bisexual characters at a time when that wasn't really the case in television in the UK and the US. So he was always political. He was always diverse in representation. He's been a staunch ally to trans people and the queer community, as he's a gay man himself. So, like, Russell T Davies, I hope he makes Doctor Who super political, just comes out busting out of the gate, and he also is just a good storyteller. So yeah, I'm totally here for Russell T Davies. I'm very much excited for everything he's gonna do, both with Ncuti Gatwa and David Tennant. I'm here for the nostalgia nonsense with David Tennant. I think it's gonna be very exciting, and then I'm very excited for Ncuti to come in and see what he's gonna do with Doctor Who. I'm very much excited for all of Russell T Davies. The Fat Culture Critic, it's good to see you. You said slowing down. You've said that before. I know. We'll talk about it. We'll see how it goes. But I think slowing down may not be the right word. What I'm going to probably do is I'm going to be diversifying some of the things I do, and I'll talk about that. If you're on my you're on my Patreon. I think you already know. Beyond YouTube, I'm gonna be doing bigger videos. Long story short, there'll be a video tomorrow that'll go into my feelings and my emotions and all the stuff that's been going on. But long story short, if you want the quick version, this year I am going to be doing less videos, but doing bigger videos, much cooler and more creative videos. And then I also have projects outside of YouTube that I'm going to be trying to get off the ground that I'm not willing to announce yet, but if you're a Patreon, you have heard what it is. But you should be excited. And I'll be announcing that probably within the next month or two. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow about it, so should be exciting. Anywho, but yes, slowing down. I never slow down. I'm a workaholic, but I want to try and create a little bit more healthy stuff. Yeah. Heath Tompkins, heart to you said, you just gave a super chat, so I just want to give you a heart. You said, Jar Jar Ed said, how much do you think creators' personal life influences their writing? I think always does. I asked because my friends point out a community between dark things, my honest and pessimistic view of life on people. I mean, I think every writer, if they're a good writer, is going to draw from their own experience. Like, writing is where you draw from your feelings and emotions and figure out. That's not to say you can't learn and be empathetic and listen to other communities. That's part of personal life. But I feel like the best writing always comes from a true place in your life. And you know, you see your friends say there's commonality between dark themes and your writing and pessimistic view on life and people. That may be indicative of just your feelings in the world, but it also is something, if you recognize it, you can play around with that. Poke at it. Maybe try to write something different. Just because that's where your point of view comes from subconsciously doesn't mean you can't be consciously aware of it as a writer and talk about it more. And so I don't think pessimism is like an inherent place that all writers come from, but you are going to be drawing upon emotions that you're feeling. So emotions that you're feeling can be viewed in a pessimistic way and optimistic way. So it just comes from, like, for example, the thing that I constantly see in my my writing, for example, like themes that I see in my writing that I unconsciously have is community. Like, I went back and found like writing that I did when I was visiting my mom back when I was in high school, and I still write about the same sort of thing about like finding community, finding friendship, being like togetherness. Like, that's just a theme that I continue to write about in my work. And I think that comes out of like a somewhat darker place in my life too. Like, I felt very lonely and bullied as a kid and by myself as a kid. And so I think a lot of my writing is sort of like reaching, and I could write about that, my loneliness and sadness, but I also think it turns in a way that like, oh, I want to pull for community and feel like a sense of solidarity with other people. And so it's coming out of both directions come out of a real emotion, but that's a theme that I have in my work. I also have like a theme of like juxtapositions and duplicates. I like when I write fiction and stuff, I always like the idea of like having juxtaposing versions of things, which is always why I like ideas of like continuance of identity. Like when people like download themselves into like a computer, and there's like the physical version and the computer version of them, which you saw in Avatar: The Way of the Water. Like I always find like those concepts, like duplicate versions of people, to be like an interesting concept that I just constantly come up with, like juxtaposition. Like I would, if I had to like put into one word, juxtaposition is like a theme that I constantly find myself even unconsciously returning to as a writer. Mr. Funny Guy, heart to you, said, I want to thank you for advice a while back, and I think thanks to your advice, I went from having a first date with friends to having a nice girl to kiss on. Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad for both of you. I hope you're both doing really well, and I hope you're having a wonderful start to your New Year's, and that's wonderful. I'm really glad, and I'm glad I was able to like give you advice in any way, shape, or form. But I'm glad both of you. I hope both of you are very, very happy, and I think it's awesome. Let's see, catching up here. Any more super chats that I missed? Our philosophy is heart to you. Andor is the first Star Wars series in a while to unite the wokes and anti-wokes. Can another Star Wars series do that again? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it speaks to a lot of like what I talk about too. That like a lot of what like actual leftism is. If we're talking about leftism and ideology, we're talking about like, you know, Marxism and things like that, or communism or like stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like leftist practices that I think everyone like resonates with. And the trick of the powerful is that they make people fight each other and hate each other and think that that's the real issue, rather than understanding that solidarity and pushing back against those in power and wanting us all to like be a community and work together is what is what resonates with people, as opposed to like the hatred. But the hatred is how people trick themselves into fighting each other. You know, one of my things, like, just to use this as a very, very quick example, like, one of the things that I'm going to be talking about in my J.K. Rowling video is like how the conversation became like J.K. Rowling versus trans people, J.K. Rowling versus Jessie gender. You know, like that was the conversation for the hot minute of the 72-hour news cycle that I was involved in. Obviously, J.K. Rowling can generate whatever news cycle she wants. I'm less so. And so, yeah, so it frames it as like a conflict between, you know, different groups and marginalized groups. But like, that's the trick of the powerful. Now, that's not to say that there are people who would not like be leftists. I think Bo of the Fifth Column actually had a great video on this recently, where he spoke about how like there's a lot of people in like rural communities that like are like think themselves right-leaning people, but actually use like very much like leftist economic thought all the time in their lives. You know, like working together to like form co-ops and things like that within their communities, even though they like might be Trump supporters or whatever. The big problem is there are still people who believe in white supremacy, and it's been ingrained in our worldview of like wishing themselves to like they'll be able to willing to use like leftist modes within their own community, but still want to have like their community, their identity above others. Whether they think so consciously, like Proud Boys do, or is like a subconscious thing in the background. And breaking that down and fighting that sort of in-group, out-group mentality is always the struggle. So I don't want to always just say like it's always going to like that those ideas are always going to unite people, but it is more resonant than I think people think, which I think is very important. So I'm a cinnamon bun. Thanks, Thomas Brandt. I will take that. I like being called a cinnamon bun. That's fun. Not a goose heart to you said, as someone from New Zealand, it was weird seeing Morai representation in Way of Water. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. That's something again that I would be less able to articulate or discuss. So that's something I would love to see someone talk about, whether it be you or someone else. It's why one of those things where it's like there's complicated views on like the things with the white savior narrative and something like Avatar: The Way of Water or the Avatar. It's like it's very much is a white savior narrative, but there are also people that resonate with elements of that representation. It was something that like Book of Boba Fett was interesting in discussion about, because there was elements of like, oh, an outsider from the Star Wars Book of Boba Fett, the outsider character coming in and like helping raise up, quote unquote, the indigenous population represented by the Tusken Raiders. But it's also important that the actor who is playing Boba Fett, he is not a white person, and that creates an interesting nuance and discussion about inter-community conversations rather than it being a white savior narrative. And so there's always like those tropes can be complicated and have interesting discussions and nuance to them, whether instead of it just being like condemned, like this is white savior narrative. That white savior narrative is a problem of like white people believing that we have the right to talk about others. But there's also nuance in that conversation as well. And people can find themselves also too finding resonance with elements of a story that is in some ways very offensive in other ways. That's why works of art are never one thing only. So. All right, let's see. Chloe, Kurt Russell walked so Dean Anderson. Yes, Richard Dean Anderson could run. Yes, very much so, Chloe. Kurt Russell walked. Like, Richard Dean Anderson is so much more fun as Jack O'Neill in Stargate SG-1. Like, nothing against Kurt Russell. I do enjoy Kurt Russell in his movies. But, like, Jack O'Neill is very much like bland, regular protagonist man in the Stargate film. James Spader was the interesting one as Daniel Jackson in the movie. O'Neill in that movie was just kind of like, hey, he was the fine protagonist. Richard Dean Anderson just adds like a bit of chaotic energy to O'Neill that I think was a lot of fun. Yeah, so no, Richard Dean Anderson is the much better O'Neill. Though again, that might just also come down to writing too. You know, forget the director of Stargate, the guy who does like all the big like world-ending films. I'm blanking on his name, but anyways, he's great. So. Yeah, Bo is a member of two marginalized communities. Exactly, the Molly J. See, it's interesting conversations. Generally, art is not one thing. There's good to be like I take issue, especially with the first movies, like white savior, like narrative elements of it. But it's also not for me to get offended as a white person for that. Like I can point it out, but it's like this is something that like I think a lot of people, not everyone, but I think a lot of people need to understand too, is that like especially as like white people like myself, like. We talk about these things, but it is not our job or our place to get offended. We can talk about it and understand. Like I have the ability to articulate some thoughts on it, but like, it's not my community that is potentially being harmed by those narrative depictions. So it's like, a lot of the time it's like, well, I can point it out, but I also need to shut up and listen to other people and not get offended. Like, because it's not my place to be like, oh, I'm so offended by the white savior narrative in Avatar. Because it's not hurting me. In fact, in many ways, it is propping up my whiteness as a hierarchy. So it's just something to be like aware of on that front. So. Stay Hum 10, hard to use. Said, hey GG, I had no idea you knew Samantha Lux. Maybe you two can collaborate again in the future. Oh, Samantha is wonderful. Yeah, I don't, to be very fair, she did a video on me and the J.K. Rowling situation a while ago, like a few days ago. It was a really great video and very wonderful and very nice of her. And we've spoken, and she mentioned in the video, like, we're friends. I will be very fair. I think she meant that jokingly. She says, like, I think she says in the video, like, we're Twitter mutuals or whatever. We've spoken, and I found her very nice and sweet, and we've talked a little bit. She DM'd me before the video release. Is like, hey, can I, use some information here? Do you have any questions? Like, she was very sweet, very nice. I've loved her work. I think she does really good work. She's faced a lot of shit from, like, people like Matt Walsh as well. Like, Matt Walsh literally responded to some of her videos, and she got a lot of crap for that. But she does really good work, and I think I always appreciate her work, articulating views really quickly and succinctly in ways that I, with my 2-hour-long video ass, cannot do. So I think that she's absolutely wonderful. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say, like, we're close friends or anything, and I would love to collaborate with her at some point. But yeah, I'm not, like, close friends with her. But I've talked to her. She's wonderful. I love her content. And, sure, I would love to collaborate with her more. I'm sorry, Chloe. No, I did not. Don't hate me. Don't hate me, Chloe. Heart to you. Also, heart to Karita Freeman. You are lovely. And thank you so much for your super chat and your nice little face. I love the little embarrassed face with the purple hair. Mwah. Thank you, friend. Let's see. Albert, hard to you, said, just saw the trailers to that 90s show. I'm definitely curious about the show, but it's kind of strange seeing a sitcom with a laugh track in 2023. I don't mind laugh tracks. I don't hate laugh tracks. It depends on the pacing of the show or whatever. Like, Red Dwarf uses a laugh track, and I think it's kind of fun. The one season where they didn't was weird. I don't mind laugh tracks, but yeah, it is strange in our day and age. But yeah, I don't hate that style of storytelling, using laugh tracks for, like, pacing out of jokes. It makes you feel like you're part of a community in a theater watching something. I think it's just a stylistic choice that I think works sometimes doesn't. I'm curious with that 90s show too. Honestly, it was one of those, like, I'm curious what it's gonna be like. Because if it follows that 70s show and the best parts of that 70s show, where it was, like, talking about the era and the feeling of that era, I'm curious to see what they're going to do for, like, the 90s, with characters in the 90s sort of dealing with what the 90s was about to many people who lived during it. Like, this feeling of promise that was at that time, and, like, the zaniness going on, but also, like, the looming, like, bubble, like, housing bubbles and 9/11 that were going to be coming around the corner. A lot of neoliberalism beliefs going on in that time too. So it'd be interesting to see what that show does. My main concern with it as a show is that it's focusing a lot of the older characters. Like, they brought Red back and a bunch of others, and I want to see those characters again. But I honestly, that 90s show was actually a concept that, like, unlike something like How I Met Your Mother, spin-off like How I Met Your Father, where it's like a bunch of new characters and I'm like, I don't really care about them that much, or things like that. That 90s show was one where I'm like, you could have done this with a whole group of new characters, and I actually think it would have been maybe better for it. Like, take the ethos of that 90s show, or that 70s show, and do it with a brand new bunch of characters instead of it being a nostalgia thing. I think it might have been better conceptually for it, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to give it a chance, because I was never, like, the biggest That 70s Show fan, but I always enjoyed what I saw of it. Alice in Purgatory, hard to say, do you think art made through the practice of capitalist empires like Amazon can ever truly be anti-fascist leftist, even if it has leftist content? Yes, I think it can be. I mean, look at Andor, and I think The Boys would probably also be a good example of that. I think you can have anti-fascist content made on a platform like that, because a lot of what capitalism does is it does two things. Is it wants to just make money. So capitalism itself upholds fascism and works with fascism. because both fascism and capitalism see people as cogs for a machine that are there for some grand purpose. For capitalism, it's like viewing people as just cogs to make money. Fascism for some grand purpose of like endless war and whatever nationalist bullshit that they're gonna create. But they still view people in the same way. But the difference with capitalism is kind of there just to make money and doesn't really care how it does so. So it will sell anti-capitalist media because they know that sells to people in order to get people to buy. So like capitalism as an enterprise, I mean, I'm sure there's some smart, quote unquote smart, people at the top of some capitalist firms that are like, yes, you cannot make anti-capitalist work at our capitalist company. But there are people that work at these companies that like are greenlighting projects like, yes, make anti-capitalist art. I'm here for it, because they're just also people suffering under capitalism. They just happen to work at the big company because we all have to work at a big company. So I definitely think like that sort of art can be made. Now there'll be certainly like, especially if something has a lot of eyes on it and a lot of like corporate meddling, you'll get like the people at the top meddling with stuff. You see that with a lot of like MCU shows and movies and Star Wars stuff too. Andor kind of became really leftist, I think, mostly because it was made by a guy who was like, screw it, I don't really have any investment if this gets made or not. Tony Gilroy. And also there wasn't like a big names like Obi-Wan as a character in it. So there wasn't a lot of like corporate watching eye on it. It was like about Andor, who cares, as a brand. But the danger of art made by big capitalist media is never use it as a false catharsis, because people will be like, oh, I watched Andor, I have successfully done something in the fight against capitalism or fascism. And all you've done ultimately is consume. You haven't done anything active, you just consumed for the machine. So when you make art in these systems, it's important to recognize them as like, yes, these are things that can inspire, but they should be used to inspire you to do actual action in the real world. Art like that should be used to inspire direct action, not to say that the consuming of the art itself was the end goal. The consumption of art was not the end goal. Art should inspire real world action and belief to motivate beyond yourself. It's why I love Star Trek so much. It's why I love Star Trek as a franchise so much, and why I love like doing stuff as like talking about it. It's like Star Trek should not just be like, oh, I watched Star Trek, it's great. It's like, no, we should use Star Trek as a way to like, as art to inspire us to like want to create that future. We want to create what Star Trek articulates, or at least to some whatever thing we can approximate to Star Trek. Like, use it as inspiration, but don't use it as the end goal in and of itself. So yes, long story short, you can create anti-fascist and leftist content within corporate systems. It's harder, for sure, but you can do it. Generally, the less money involved in something, the more likely it will be able to get made in the systems. Again, Andor probably has a lower budget than most Star Wars shows, things like that. But I think you can make it. But the danger is not to let it be a false catharsis. Consumption of anti-fascist art is not the end goal. Using it to inspire anti-fascist action is the goal. I will get my Bionicles. I'm going to quick run through because we are hitting the end of the stream. I've actually gone over, but I will grab some Bionicles really quick. But I'm going to give hearts to Victoria Novel. Jar Jar Ed, nuanced conversation like a bantha. Heart to you. Dragon Hill, do you have any other Star Trek novel recommendations? Anything by Una McCormack. Quite literally, that's my flat out, like, read anything by Una McCormack. Like, look up a list of Una McCormack Star Trek novels and just buy one that sounds interesting to you, because they're all freaking fantastic, and Una McCormack deserves their own Star Trek show. So I'll that's my fast and quick one. I will definitely have more novel suggestions for you at some other point, but like, quick version, anything by Una McCormack, go read. Weirdly interesting. Bionicles, I will get them. Heart to you. You said, and Jar Jar Ed, on the subject of fascism versus capitalism, who is more terrifying, Agent Smith or Lex Luthor? I now must take a moment to grasp how much of this super chat went into this machine. I mean, they're both awful. Like, Agent Smith is this is a whole other conversation here, but Lex Luthor is the CEO capitalist. He's the one that ultimately is the end benefit of capitalism. If we're gonna put it into the Matrix, Lex Luthor would be like the big machines. He would be like the face at the end of Matrix revolutions, right? He would be the big CEO, the one who ultimately like does the most benefiting from this system. Whereas Agent Smith is like a lower level machine who's like an incel fascist boy. And in in the original trilogy, Agent Smith is very much like a part of the state machine. He works for he literally works for a representative of the FBI, and analogous to him, he's like literally state-sponsored harm and control of the citizens. But he's also very much a radicalized fascist boy who, like, to a degree, suffers under the system, but enacts it by trying to push down and harm others. He's not one of the ones in charge, and that gets even more articulated in the Matrix Resolutions. No. New one. Revelations is the fourth one. Resolutions is the one I was talking about before, the third one. Revelations, the fourth one, where he's still the CEO of a company, or I think he's like the head of a company, but he's still like oppressed too by other people above him who are like forcing him to do things. Like Warner Brothers is quite literally forcing him to do things. So he still has power, but he's also a radicalized little fascist boy. So like, ultimately, if I had to argue, like, Lex Luthor is ultimately more dangerous because Lex Luthor has the ability to create people like Agent Smith, whereas Agent Smith is a byproduct of the system that Lex Luthor benefits from. So, like, Agent Smith will probably cause more direct physical violence as a person. Like, he will be the one that will go out and shoot people and hurt people. Like, he would be like a Proud Boy equivalent to a degree, or, you know, someone like an FBI agent conducting violence against people. But Lex Luthor is the one that can create an army of Agent Smiths, you know? So that would be the quick version of that answer. Anywho, I need to quit because I need to go eat stuff, but I want to quick show you some Bionicles. Let me go grab my Bionicles really quickly because I'm very excited to show them off, but I'll be right back. Whew. These aren't all of them. These aren't all of them. I have like 6 more tubes out in the living room. I have them on like a shelf now, displaying them. But I got my Bionicles here. Let's see. Make sure you can see it on my camera. There we are. But yeah, no, I have my It even still has, like, I even still have the instructions booklets in here. My instruction booklets. I even have the instruction booklets on how to build them inside of this thing. But yeah, I built them once and I haven't like had to build them again. Look at that. Look at that. Fun times. I did not know that, Aronok. That's amazing. Oh. I did not know that. That's really cool. Anyways, got this guy too. I have a few more out in the living room, but yeah, I got my Bionicles. I love it. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I have a whole bunch of them. I have some of the, like, the second run ones. I forget what they're called, because I was never into, like, the huge lore of Bionicles as I break these guys. Aronok seems to be much more excited than I am. Which is cool. I'm here for it. But I have the ones that, like, hang from, like, the top of the tubes or whatever. I forget what those are called. But yeah, here we are. Put it back in the little. Go back in your little Bionitubes. Okay. Wow. But yeah, those are my Bionicles. And Michelle Harcher, you're catching us right at the end of the stream. You said, "Hi Jesse, you're cool as fuck." Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I don't think I'm ever gonna be cool. People call me cool. It's one of the weirdest things about being a YouTuber. People are like, "You're cool, Jesse," and I'm like, "What? I'm a dork." God, if you could tell that to my high school friends, you know. Because they definitely didn't think me as cool. I don't think I'll ever, like, think of myself as cool. But I appreciate the sentiment. Appreciate you and all the labor you do for marginalized groups. Well, thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate you. And thank you for being here. And thank you for being amazing. And thank you for being yourself. Oh, love you. You can be cool and be a dork. Yeah, but I don't think I'm ever cool. Am I cool? I don't think I'm cool, everybody. I'm definitely cool. Jesse, what? No. No. Don't offend me like that. Don't come at me calling me cool. Now I'm offended. I'm hurt being called cool. I appreciate Alpha Dork. I'll take that, Catherine Lambeth. I am Alpha Dork. Don't come at me with the C slur with cool here. I appreciate you all. No, you're wonderful, amazing. I adore you all. But yes, you are amazing, Cyber Quaker too. Okay, I'm gonna head out because I might have to go have dinner. Just quick announcements. Video tomorrow. Be just sort of an update on what I'm planning on doing for the year in the channel, just sort of my emotional state after. Mostly it was dealing with the Matt Walsh video fallout because I wrote and filmed that video after the Matt Walsh stuff with intending it to end at the end of December, come out at the end of December. But then stuff with J.K. Rowling's sidestep stuff. So yeah, just video tomorrow. That'll just be going over like fallout from Matt Walsh stuff and my feelings on content going forward and some announcements for the channel. And then be on the lookout. More than likely it'll be in 2 weeks because next week is really super busy for some random reasons. If I'm lucky, it'll be next week. But more than likely in 2 weeks, I'll have a video about J.K. Rowling. My last video about J.K. Rowling ever, because it's not really about her. That'll be coming in 2 weeks. And then from there, I got some fun stuff on the works with like Aeronock and a few other videos and some fun things. So be on the lookout for some cool stuff coming this year from me. But unfortunately, January is just going to be a month of one last run of shitty people talking about shitty people doing shitty things. But from there, we'll be talking about much more hopeful things going in, hopefully, into the rest of 2023. So it's going to be amazing. Aeronock and I are going to kick ass. I'm very excited about it. Everyone, just to give you I'm going to give you all homework. This is what I'm going to do from now on at the end of my streams. I realized I'm going to send you all to go subscribe to a channel. So I mentioned him before. Aeronock, I'm going to do you next week. You should also go subscribe to Aeronock's channel. But since I was talking about him earlier, I'm going to put in the chat a Fantastic Mr. Fox's channel, and I want you all, I just put it in the chat, I want you all to go subscribe to his channel as soon as this, like right now this stream is ending, so if y'all leave, if I see a mass exodus of people leaving this stream right now, good, you should be. Go click on Fantastic Mr. Fox's channel, subscribe to his channel, and then literally put in your watch later videos, his most recent video, What is Positive Masculinity? It's a great video. It's fan-freaking-tastic. Fan-fin-tastic. And he just does such great work talking about masculinity and how to reframe and rethink masculinity in a really positive and nuanced and beautiful way. So go subscribe to his channel. Go put that video on what is positive masculinity into your watch later right now. You shouldn't even be listening to me anymore. You should be off the stream. If you're hearing my voice right now, you're doing it wrong. Sending you love, though. And give him a watch. And leave him a comment, too. Send him, like, sending you love, Finn. Just say, literally just sending you love. Don't say it was for me. I don't want this to be about me. Just send him some love and give his channel a watch. With all that said, love you all. Adore you. Take care of yourselves. I will see you either Saturday for some streaming. If I do streaming, Aeronock, if you're down, I might actually be down to stream with you if you want to jump on a stream with me after we chat Saturday about behind the scenes stuff. But we'll talk about that Saturday. So possibly I'll see you on Saturday for some streaming stuff. Depends on how far I get in the J.K. Rowling video. Otherwise, check out the video tomorrow, and I will see you next Thursday at the very latest. Mwah. See you all, my friends.